the Melbourne Fun Run. I now understand how you get around Melbourne in a different direction. But thank you thank you for what you do. Your question about what we should do or should not do. I'm probably not the best person. You've got Timia here, who is a bank of ideas for us nationally. My role is I'm Executive Director of Community Languages Australia. So you wanted statistics, so we have about 100,000 students around the country. We have about 60 to 70 languages. And yesterday we had our national conference of about 300 people, about 40 different communities. And given most people, I presume here are from Victoria, we've also put into the Victorian government and also to the opposition our request for increased funding. You get $245 per student now, but we've put in for an extra $30 per capita. Yesterday, the Liberal Party announced $5.4 million over 4 years, and I spoke to the Minister yesterday, and the government will also make a commitment. What can I say? Yesterday's conference was probably a very interesting conference because, and Timia can probably tell you more about that, because it was about what we called it was New Horizons and imagining the future. And much of what was spoken about yesterday was, where do we go? We've been through COVID, we're reconnecting, the world has changed, we've learned to do things in different ways. And as Maria Gandidis, who did the keynote, said, are we going to lose anything that we gained over these last 2 years? So the last 2 years have been very much, we didn't see each other. And yesterday, for example, it was lovely to see people embracing and hello and how are you and how did you get through COVID, and it's great to be back together again. But that also impacts on our students in our schools. I don't know how the Hungarian schools went through COVID, but obviously Zoom and all those things became a reality. But that also opened up new opportunities. It also put some challenges to us. I'm of Ukrainian background, and I presume Hungarian, Ukrainian, Latvian, Lithuanian, all that part of the world, we're all suffering from the same thing. Our immigration of 70 years ago, where our parents or grandparents came, then they had children, and they had children, and then grandchildren, and then, I know in my own case, for example, both my children are adults, they're married to non-Ukrainians, which brought another challenge, but I say to my grandchildren, to my children, your grandmother was German, my father was Ukrainian, my mother was German. I learned Ukrainian, I learned German. So there's no reason why your children can't learn other languages. But there are the challenges. There's football, there's soccer, there's basketball, there's, you name it, they're doing it. The question is this part of their life important? And I think yesterday's conference basically highlighted a number of things, that with language and with culture, that's a dimension that you have that others don't have unless they have another language. So it's very, very important. How do you keep communities together? When you talk about, for example, aspirations in education, you want children to get to VCE or HSC or SACE. Question is, can we get enough students to get to 15? And I know that from a Hungarian point of view, you've been able to connect nationally, and that's why I think these sort of bodies are very, very important. We just spoke about, for example, the Ukrainian similar organisation has also seen that it's very, very hard to get people to work continuing in committees, but they've gone with the concept of a co-chair. They've looked for other ways of doing it. They're looking for people in technology, and I'll go back to Timmy, and Timmy can probably speak to you a bit later on, but the technology, the part of technology is very, very important. But I don't think technology is the answer to everything. So if we tomorrow turn around and say we do everything online, you don't touch, you don't feel, you don't have people coming into a room, you don't have students connecting, I'm just wondering how far we'll really get. Yes, we might get the language component, but there's not the community feel. So I think in this day and age, what we call blended learning is very, very important. It's a bit of this and a bit of that. It's a bit of technology, it's a bit of meeting, it's a bit of people coming together. And I think that's the way of the future. And we from Community Language Australia, the takeaways from yesterday were very much about how do you do this blended learning? How do you marry being online with coming together with creating community? Because that's the difference between what you do and other institutions that teach language. You build community. I mean, community language schools and you know, your history here in Australia is no different than our Ukrainian history. We have communities, we have churches, we have youth groups, we have a whole range of things, and schools play a very, very important part in that. You know, the other thing that I think we now need to look at is how we cooperate. And again, I remember speaking 2 years ago or 2.5 years ago when you had your last conference, we spoke about that. How do you connect nationally? But more importantly, in this day and age, how do you connect internationally? I know a lot of the communities, what COVID gave them, what that forced them to do was to go to technology, to have Zoom, but then look for resources on the web, look resources through government, look for resources through different institutions that teach, in your case, Hungarian. How can they help you? And I know that the feedback from a lot of communities is, you know, we've connected internationally now. You know, it's like, it's to connect. I'm Vice President of the Ukrainian World Congress. You know, I speak to, nearly every night, I speak to a different part of the world. You know, last night I spoke to 8 different countries. Now imagine if I had to get on a plane to go 8 different countries. It has its positives, but I think, again, the message that came through yesterday, we have to be very, very conscious of what we do. What can we do for you? Nationally, and I don't know, who is there? Primary Victoria here, or is it Sydney? We won't hold that against you. It's okay. the question. South.
Yeah, from Adelaide.
Adelaide. We won't hold that against you either. Look, the fact is that nationally, the connections that you can make. What can we do? Yesterday, for example, Friday night we had a board meeting. New South Wales, South Australia, Victoria, they offer training. And what does that training mean? That training means we do a lot of surveying. What are the needs? What do you want? What do you need? What do teachers need? So in terms of teaching Hungarian grammar, I'm not sure that we're going to be able to help you with that. But in things such as, you know, looking at classroom management, creating the environment, being able to work successfully as a group, all those sort of training those methodology things we can offer. And they're online, they'll be online, and they're free. So one of the things that we'll do, again, I think it's important that we get we have your contact, but that in terms of putting this thing out so that you can put it out to your teachers, I think that's one way of cooperating. Another thing that was raised was the question of networking. Now, you've already got the network here. And one of the, you know, I'll give you a Filipino, for example. Filipinos, I told this story the other day. The woman who started the Filipino school about 20 years ago came to me and said, I want to start a Filipino school. And what she did was, at Footscray Market, which is a market in the west where there's a high percentage of Filipino families, she put a table outside the market week after week, week after week, until she got students. She started the school, did the school, and just before COVID, they celebrated, I forget, it was 15th or 20th anniversary. And you know the thing that struck you? All the alumni were the people who were running the school, who were running that night. So basically what she does very, very well, that school does very, very well, it plans for succession. It turns around and it says, this is the way we should plan for succession, because we're not going to be here all the time. So they've got younger people. Yesterday, for example, Marie Gandidis, who presented, Also spoke about things such as this. How do you engage those younger people with the older people? So they have, you know, the Greeks have, and I presume you don't have to have a Hungarian elderly peoples or retirement village, but you do have senior citizens who are in those homes. And they take the students there, so all of a sudden they're talking, these young kids are talking to the older people, and for socially and mentally, it sort of also helps those people. Another thing that came through yesterday, and it's like this group. We have groups like this everywhere. It doesn't matter where you go today, you've probably got this sort of thing, okay? So we're trying to do something. We're trying to work hard. You commit, you could be at home now. You know, you could be sleeping that extra hour. This we lost here in Victoria. You could be doing the gardening, you could be at church, you could be doing other things. But you're doing this because you want to do something for the community. One thing we've come to realise is, who are we talking to? So I'm talking to you, you're talking to me. I'm saying we're doing a great job, you're telling me you're doing a great job, and we're all happy, we leave happy. Question is this: how much do we connect with, put in inverted commas, the client? How much do we talk to parents? How much do we talk to the students? And we have, through Monash, done a research thing on parental attitudes and student attitudes. And again, one of the things that came through yesterday was spend time talking to your parents, to the students, and asking, what do you want? Because if we talk about this blended version of life, it's going to rely on parents and students. You know, those who have kids, I mean, I've got 5 grandkids who are, you know, 8 till 3 and 3.5. My 3.5, you know, she says, actually, you know, they're telling you at 3.5 what life's going to be like. That's different. It's different to when we were growing up. But the point is that we have to talk to the students, we have to talk to, especially the older students, and especially to those who have gone through Hungarian school and today have finished, maybe successful in business, maybe lawyers, maybe doctors, maybe plumbers, regardless of what they do. But they went through a school where you can say, well, they can come to the students now and say, you know what, I also put up with this, you know, I didn't want to go either. No, I don't think any of us who went to community language schools got up on Saturday morning and said, whoopee, you know, it's a community language school today, I want to go. I don't think any of us did. But we all benefited from it. And that conversation, and in terms of parents, I mean, we have, and Timmy can help you with this, we have a person who works for us, Heather, who's very good at putting out sort of the surveys to be able to do 2 things. One, not only put out a survey, but also be able to do the analytics for you. So if you wanted something that was specific for your parents, for the Hungarian parents, about you getting their attitudes nationally or on a state basis, we can do that for you. We can say, okay, you know, here are the questions, you get we'll do the analysis, you get the results, you do something with it. But talking to people, I think, is very, very important. For too long, we've been talking to ourselves, and you know, we think we know what's right, and we probably do. But on the other hand, there are those who we have to serve. And in terms of students, I mean, again, the older students, the other thing that's now come up is, how do you use those older students? How do you use them in your own school? And you know, when you know, sometimes you start to talk and you start to realise you're getting old, you know. But I just want to, why you should never write history from yourself, you know, because we're all doing things. And before we were here, there were others. And before them, there were others again. Let me give you the Ukrainian experience. In 1972, the Ukrainian School Council, which is this body, had a very, very strong school council. They were probably, historically, in Australia, in our parts of the world, were the first people that put a curriculum together. This is what you teach in grade 1, this is what you teach in grade 2, here's the historical moments, here's the cultural moments. And the training happened exactly like we're doing it now. It's just that we were too smart following them, think, it's not going to work. Tell you what the training was. you did, for example, I went to Ukrainian school, I finished grade 10 or whatever it was, and then for the next 2 years, I was a trainee teacher. In other words, I went back to the school, and a lot of my peers, a lot of people who are teaching today, did exactly the same. For 2 years, they did methodology, they did pedagogy, you know, it was all done. And then we had, for example, school concerts. We had 300-400 kids on stage. Every year there was a Ukrainian school, a Ukrainian language school a day. Until people got smart and said, well, you know what, these concerts, they take too long, you know, we've got to do other things. Have a guess what's happening now? People saying, how do we put these concerts again? Because they're a great connection. So I think in history, and again from a Hungarian point of view, it would be worth to have a look at what worked, what did work. Because people say, oh, you know, you're old, you're older, you know, we know better. Have a look at the education system. I mean, I came out of the education system. I used to be a teacher, you know, many years ago, but I then I was chair of the Victorian Multicultural Commission, I was on language advisory boards, I'm advising people now and saying to the new minister, listen, you need to listen. Because, you know, when things worked, you got people around the table. And I think sometimes it's not about always looking for something new. Yes, technology is new, yes, blended learning, yes, but what worked before? Why did it work then and doesn't work now? Why? Because basically our parents, and I'm talking about my own kids and you know, I don't know what to call the 40s and 50s, I don't want to offend anybody, but you know, or 30s, 40s and 50s. It's, you know, that's old and this is new. Bring in chuck out the old, bring in the new. I think we need to balance all that because our parents and our forebearers had something. And the other thing is with community language schools, why is it important? You know, you did classes yesterday. The fact is, you want culture. You can't go away from that. You want culture. Some people say to me, we have a new ambassador who I work with very closely, and he says, oh, you know, we've got to think about, you know, business and we've got to do that. And I said, yeah, that's true. But, you know, the situation in Ukraine today, and I'm at the forefront here in Australia with, you know, a lot of that political stuff. But you do events, business people do events. They want to collect money for Ukraine, they want to do crisis appeal. First thing they say, can you get me somebody to sing? Can you get me somebody in a costume? Can you get me somebody who dances? Because they want to touch, feel. So all that put all that together, join the dots, and we have a good product. So in conclusion, or I suppose the message I want to leave is this: if you need help in any shape or form, professional development, if you need, we have 30-hour training courses, free. We're a registered training organisation. We offer a certificate for community language teaching. Here in Victoria, we're already working towards those Victorians who go through the RTO, that they get permission to teach through the Victorian Institute of Teaching. So we can help you with that. In terms of technology, again, we'll be doing more work in that space. And we've got to make it fairly generic because we won't be able to make it language specific, but you can take those ideas away. You can take those ideas away and say, this is what we're going to do. And then there's a connection. I understand you had the consul here yesterday and the ambassador was going to come. What does Homeland do? Homeland also needs to take responsibility because for too long, and I think we have, and I have, fairly good connections with a lot of the embassies. They're all very interested in this area now. They're all very, because they have to show their bosses that they're doing something, and what is it the connection that you can have. There's a lot we can do, but I think yesterday's underlying message will say thank you to all those involved in the community languages area. I think we're undervalued. You're undervalued because of the hours and the commitment you put in, and ultimately what we can do is we have to share that knowledge, and through Community Languages Australia we hope that we can share that knowledge with you. And again, I just don't want to pick on Timia, but she's a good conduit. She's a good conduit for you because she's an executive officer in Queensland, but we have executive officers in New South Wales, South Australia, here in Victoria, now one in WA, they also talk, you know, and ultimately they bounce ideas off each other. So she's going to be, I think, a very good conduit for you. We're trying to get her a little bit more money in Queensland so she can do more work in this area. But it's not just the work that she does for Queensland, but I think it's also a lot of the ideas that she comes up with. And we've got a very good team, and with her, and we've got Heber, and we've got these people, and Alex in New South Wales, who are all, you know, tech thinking. And they're the people who are going to find the answers, you know. And when they find all the good answers and they give it to us, when they do that, then we'll say it's our idea. If it doesn't work, it's their fault. You know? So have a, for those from interstate, welcome to Melbourne. Please spend money. The economy is down. Please do not hold this for too long, so that lunchtime people can go and spend money. But thank you for the invitation, and if you've got any questions, happy to answer those. But otherwise, thank you.
Thank you.